To Mr. Ron DeSantis of Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When the President addressed this issue in September, the White House said that he had authority to act based on the 2001 and 2002 AUMFs. And so the media is reporting that he's asking Congress for authority, but by their own view, he's asking Congress to restrict and limit the authority, both by whatever, and I agree these terms are nebulous, but having some prohibition on the use of ground forces and having a time limit, and I agree with the witnesses, I don't think that is an effective way to fight an enemy. I think you need to determine the enemy, determine the strategy, and then bring all force to bear or be willing to do that. And obviously the Commander-in-Chief needs to make these decisions. But so I'm trying to figure out what is motivating this, and I think it's because if you look at the way things are going, if you look at the strategy that's in place or lack of strategy, this is not going to succeed. And I think everybody understands that. And so I think the President is looking to get Congress is imprimatur on his strategy so that he can then point the finger at us and say, well, these guys limited me. I'm just, we all thought this was a good idea. And right now, he's kind of out there. Congress is urging him to do different. And he gave an interview this week where he said, look, terrorism, the news makes a big deal about it. It's just something like a big city mayor. You got to deal with criminals and stuff. So I'm thinking like Giuliani when he used to get these guys with the squeegees who would do that. I'm like, is that really how you're seeing it? So I'm skeptical for doing this now. Let me ask you this, Dr. Brennan, because I think that this kind of informs where we're going. Is the problem a group of violent extremists who happen to go by the name of ISIS or whatever you want to call them, or is this a global jihad that presents national security implications and threatens our national security and our allies, not just in this part of Syria or that part of Iraq, but really in countries across the globe?
I think it's useful to look at this as not as a terrorist organization. But it is a global phenomenon that we're seeing. And I think you can also look at it as a global insurgency, where you have sister organizations sprouting up all over the world, fighting in support of the same type of ideology, even though they may not have direct linkage or direct command and control. Again, if I may use loosely the analogy of the 20th century when we had Marxist revolutions all over the world. Many of them didn't like each other, didn't work with each other, but they supported each other in different ways. And I think that's a way of looking at it.
Dr. Rand mentioned, I think accurately, that a lot of these Sunni tribesmen in Iraq, certainly when I was serving there, they're really not jihadists. They're Sunni Arabs, and if they think that back then AQI was better than the deal they get with the central government, then they were apt to do that. And if they think it's a Shiite government, then that's going to push them further. So I guess my question is if you look at the administration's policy, there's a clear attempt to have a major rapprochement with Iran. If you look at Yemen, now could potentially be an Iranian client state. The Assad, I know we've been through different machinations there, but I think the administration is content to leave Assad there. And so if you're just the average Sunni Arab wanting to figure out should you kind of work with the and whatever forces that we may be supporting, or should you work with some of the Sunni jihadist groups, if they see us as a facilitating Shiite domination of the region, isn't that going to push some of these Sunni Arabs who are not necessarily jihadists into the arms of the more radical Sunni groups? Ambassador?
Absolutely, which is why we can't pick a side in the Sunni-Shia struggle any more than we could pick a side in the Christian-Muslim struggle in the Balkans. We have to have a set of values and friends who accept them and go after everybody who's violating them, whether they're coming out of Mosul or they're coming out of Tehran or they're coming out of Damascus.
So if you have, for example, ISIS fighters threatening the outer Baghdad belts, and you have Shiite militia groups, which we've considered to be terrorists when we were in Iraq and that are supported by Iran's Quds force, some have said, well, there's kind of an alliance with the U.S. We're supporting some of the anti-ISIS forces in other parts of Iraq, and we're essentially relying on the Iranian-backed forces to keep ISIS out of Baghdad. Is that a sustainable strategy?
In the long run, no, but there's a saying, you slay the wolf closest to the sled. Right now, when ISIS is moving forward, we should be working with anybody that can stop them. But they've really not moved forward anymore, and now we got to figure out how to go get them, and that's not what Sheila.
Mr. Ted Deutsch, Ranking Member.